And welcome to another VSA Capital video blog. And it's myself, Andrew Monk, the Chief Executive of VSA Capital. I'm delighted today to have the Chief Executive of Samarkand Global PLC, David Hampstead. And of course, Samarkand Global, we actually floated this week. In fact, we started trading, well, last Monday, the March the 22nd. So David, hello, how are you?
Yeah, very good, Andrew. Yeah, how are you? Good to see you.
Pretty good. So, you're now a listed company. How does it feel? And out of interest, how did you find the whole process? Just purely for interest and for anybody watching, was it as bad as you envisaged, the whole IPO process?
Yeah, I think when you sit out on it, it seems intimidating for sure as a business of our size. But we were very fortunate. We had some great advisors, obviously with VSA, but also our profession. The lawyers, the accountants, they were fantastic throughout as well. So I think having a team like that with you made the whole process much less daunting than I thought it was going to be. I mean, obviously there's still a lot that you need to go through, and that was all done pretty smoothly. I think I was surprised actually how quickly we managed to do it all in the end. And once we put our mind to it as a group, we pulled it off, I think, quite quickly. So I would certainly say to other businesses that are kind of in this space or this sort of size, looking at doing it, it could be a really good way to raise capital versus, if they're looking at VC or PE. That wasn't what we wanted to do, and actually public market was good.
I mean, as you point out, we were the advisor, and one of the nice things was, of course, that we'd pre-marketed you and got some institutions who had sort of pre-committed, so we felt very confident all along that we were going to be successful, which helped, I think. But we did, in the end, we also got a huge shareholder list, and we had over 100 retail shareholders come in, so you've got a nice spread, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Having that confidence, I suppose, or after the pre-marketing definitely helps, and yeah, that was a good move. But yeah, no, good spread. About 30% is with private investors and some really good institutions for the other 70%. So yeah, we're really pleased.
And, I mean, out of interest, often people worry that when they go through a float process that they get distracted from their own business. So did you find that at all, or did you find actually that January, February, March, which is when you were really busy on this float, actually trading carried on pretty good?
Yeah, I would say yes. Some of the team were distracted a little bit by the process. Just I think that's inevitable. But we have the foundation in place now. The business carried on at pace. In fact, grew. We had a very good 3 months whilst we were, the CFO, myself, the Chief Operating Officer, were mostly focused on this, and actually didn't impact the wider business too much. There was some time required from other parts of the business for DD and audits and those kind of things, but didn't impact too much. But it was a bit of headspace for a few months that we needed to.
Well, we'll be careful what we say about numbers, because you're a March year end, so you're just coming up to year end, and you have to stick with all the market rules now, David. You can't just say what you feel like as a private company.
No, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, we're March year end. So we'll be putting out all our official numbers in the timely fashion that we're obliged to now. But
yeah, well, let's just turn a little bit to the future. I mean, one of the things about an IPO is you do the IPO, you're there, you opened at a nice premium, which was nice. There was some volume going on, but obviously what you want now is new people to come and invest in you to keep the share price moving and keep liquidity going. So, I guess you've got a sort of a program of PR meetings and things lined up. But I mean, how do you sort of see the next 3 to 6 months in terms of news flow? And I mean, you've got all this money as well, so perhaps we can have a chat about what you're going to do with it. Have you got some deals lined up? Obviously, you can't say what they are, but give us a little bit of a feel of what we should be expecting coming up.
Yeah. So yeah, we're working. So we have a financial PR firm that we're working. We've got a calendar of events that we're doing, that we have planned, announcements around some of the use of proceeds elements that are in the plan that will be deploying some of the raise for. So we have acquisitions that we're hoping to be able to announce in the not too distant. Also, some of the international expansion plans, they are moving through as well. So all the things we said we would execute in our roadshow and in our prospectus are all taking place. So we've got a good news flow coming over the next 3 to 6 months. Doing more kind of webinar type outreach and PR events. So that we've got a few of those lined up with some of the platforms, like Proactive, and looking at some of the other publications, shares, and those kind of retail investor type publications, or online publications, I guess, these days. So
there'll be good flow of activity, should we say. I mean, one of the other things, presumably, your core business obviously is taking Western brands, mainly in the health and beauty and that sort of area, into China, very fast growing market. But with an IPO, you've had a lot of publicity, a lot of profile. And as a quoted company, you're a 70 million market cap now, you're a very serious business. Presumably, where before perhaps you're having to knock on doors and say, look, can we sell your product into China? I would guess to a certain extent now it's the other way around. People are knocking on your door, aren't they, and saying, can you sell our product, please? Are you seeing that happening?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, you're right. It's definitely raised our profile. I mean, traffic to our website has increased, as you expect. A lot of it is investor interest, but it's definitely more coming through from brands. I think it's definitely helped to raise our profile and set us apart as well. So that's positive. We're really, and it's not just that timing, but also the timing on a macro kind of basis. With Brexit, brands are really starting to struggle now to sell in the same way they were in Europe. And ironically, actually selling through cross-border e-commerce in China could be easier than selling to a consumer in France. So there's a perfect storm in a way, but a good storm for what we're doing. So our business development team is never been busier, and we've got now new part of the international expansion is our business development manager or director is starting next week in mainland Europe. So he'll be based in France. So lots of interest from French and Italian and German brands as well for what we're doing. So it's good. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Because I mean, the market you're trying to address is just so huge, and you are a market leader. But I mean, the upside potential here is enormous. But another thing, presumably, with your IPO, and now you're a listed company, it must have helped cement the trust with a lot of your partners. You've got some very good partnership relationships in logistics, in payment plans, in all the sort of mobile apps. But by doing this, it must have really strengthened that relationship and given them a lot more confidence in you and given a lot more credibility. Has that been the case?
Yeah, absolutely. I probably won't name names at the moment, but yes, that's definitely happened, and I think it's moved relationships forward with some of those for sure. And so I think we'll get a positive effect from that too as well. Yeah, but yeah, it is funny. It has made quite a big difference perception-wise, I think, for a lot of companies. So yeah.
And certainly, I mean, I did a virtual ringing the bell with you on last Monday, and there were 40 people from your Chinese office and actually some of the VSA office as well. But I mean, it's given you a lot of credibility inside China, hasn't it? I mean, China really does respect a London listed company. Yes,
yeah, and to be honest, that was part of the thinking behind it as well. We assumed, or not assumed, but we thought it might help in that respect, and it certainly seems to be the case now that everything's come through. So yeah, it's had a very good side effect in that respect too.
And if we use our crystal ball a little bit and we look a little bit further at 5 years time maybe, and we can talk about 5 years because it's not saying anything that wouldn't to a certain extent be in the public market anyway, because it's all complete make believe, should we say. It's not make believe because it's going to be true, but this is a massive market. I mean, how big can you become? I mean, I know you don't like to be called a mini Hut Group, should we say, but I mean, the Hut Group grew to this enormous size. Can you overtake the Hut Group? Because actually you're so good at what you do into China. I mean, how big can you become? Where do your dreams go to, David? Tell us,
Well, yes, it's a massive market, as you say. That if you add the next 10 e-commerce markets together, you don't have the Chinese e-commerce market. It's this year is actually the first year where more retail transactions will happen online in China than will happen offline, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. 52% of transactions, retail transactions, actually be through e-commerce, which, you know, South Korea is the next highest at 29%, UK the third place at 28%. So it's, yeah, e-commerce in China is how it will, I think, as well spread to other parts of the region. And you know, we're already starting to see some of the e-commerce techniques that are very popular and huge in China migrating to the West as well. You know, influencer-led selling is enormous in China. It's almost the size of the entire US e-commerce market is just social selling now in China. So so it's a very fast growing, it's a very large market, it's a very fast moving. So there's new opportunities. That's one of the things I as an entrepreneur love about China is there's, you know, before you know it, there's another new channel that has suddenly gone from nothing to, you know, billions of dollars of sales in a remarkably short space of time. So part of having completed this IPO is it gives us, you know, you need some firepower to, you know, to compete in this market, which is what this IPO has helped us do. I think what we're seeing is the opportunity to move from not just providing the e-commerce services for the brands, for Western brands, but become part of the digital infrastructure and the plumbing that can be used by any brands from anywhere. And you know, we have projects right now that are along those lines. So, you know, where we don't even, you know, represent the brand necessarily, they're just using our technology and we're just taking a commission on everything, a bit like a payment provider, but for e-commerce. Because, you know,
and I think that's something, I mean, you know, the scope of when we talk about brands is actually probably even bigger than people realize as well, because for anybody who is thinking about the Chinese market, it's a very daunting market to go into. I mean, I know myself, I have an office in Shanghai and it took me years to work out how to do it. But for most people, the thought of setting up a business in China and distributing around that, it's just mind-boggling. Yeah. You allow them that access to get going. I mean, that means that just about everybody can actually get going with you. Yeah. Actually, once they get going with you, they'll probably want to stay with you because it's such an efficient system.
Yeah, I mean, using a service provider for the Chinese market is done by, you know, even the biggest brands like Nike and Adidas. They use a local service, you know, they use a specialist service provider for that market because it is very complicated, and it, you know, it needs a certain level of knowledge. So I think most brands don't want to do that themselves. I mean, a lot of brands these days in the West are even outsourcing their Amazon, you know, e-commerce. So I think the risk of disintermediation is relatively low for what we're doing. But I think what we're trying to do, or what we're doing with some of the newer products like our Nomad Checkout solution, is allowing brands to transact with Chinese consumers in the same way as they would transact with a consumer from the US or the Middle East, which is not really possible for them at the moment. They have to go through a distributor and they have to give up a lot of margin, a lot of control. But with products like Nomad Checkout, they can leverage their existing e-commerce infrastructure, which they've spent a lot of money building and, you know, designing and perfecting. They can use that to sell to the Chinese consumers on their own terms, you know, get the same kind of margin that they would get from selling elsewhere. So, and that gives them that first very easy, low cost, low risk route into the market. And then, you know, from there, you know, it's their appetite for doing more in the market. We can help them with that as well, you know, if they want to open stores.
And you do have to understand the Chinese consumer, don't you? I mean, they like a different sort of packaging, a different layout. You know, it's got different times when they sell product because they don't have the same sort of holiday system that we have. I mean, having that in-depth understanding is vital. Otherwise, you just won't be successful in business. You have to understand and work with the Chinese and respect what they want. I mean, they're a very powerful nation.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, the center of gravity is certainly shifting east when it comes to consumer spend, and but it is a very different market. Yeah, you're right. The consumers have different expectations. There's different trends, and they can move very quickly. And then the shopping festivals in China are on a totally different timeline to the West as well. There's a lot more information as well. The Chinese consumer is quite a you know, they're quite a discerning consumer. You know, they will do a lot of information. So, you know, that is part of the service as well, part of the managed service.
I'll tell you what, we're going to be talking a lot in the future because, as you know, I'm incredibly excited about your prospects. We think the upside here is enormous. You literally only just started, as they say in China. You know, a long journey starts with a few steps and all those sort of phrases. You've done your few steps, but we have a long journey ahead, and it's going to be, I think, very rewarding for all investors. So we'll be talking more, but let's call it a day there because it's a good little teaser. I think there's going to be a lot of news coming up in the next few months, which is going to be pretty exciting. As you say, you've got the money, spend it wisely, as they say. Yes. And thank you for coming and have a quick chat with me, David.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, anytime. Thanks.